let's start with something maybe a little bit not so heavy, let's say. But this is something I've picked on in the past. And the headline here is, hang on, let me add this to the stream. There we go. Summer Games Fest tells fans to manage your expectations. So this is Jeff Keighley's, I don't even know now, is it once a year, is it twice a year? It's all the same kind of, not award show style, mostly ads of new games coming out, repositioned as content, which it's not. But it's interesting because he has come out and basically said, we're not going to really announce anything new. It's a show about new announcements, but that fans should manage their expectations. And it's mostly stuff that people have seen before or that have already been announced. I'm curious what you guys think of this. You know, I want to put this next to another story, which I'm going to show you in a minute here. But what do you think of Summer Games Fest, which I think people now wait for to see the new game trailers, coming out and saying, well, we don't really have anything new. It's all just stuff that's already been announced. Are these alarm bells going off? Is it weird that this is the founder of this show coming out and saying it? Like, what do you guys make of this? Break it down for me. What conclusions do we draw?
I mean, I'm a little uncertain as to, I guess, the posturing here, because normally you know, if you have a big event like this, right, you want to come out, get people excited. I understand needing to temper expectations. Maybe there were less announcements. Also, I'm a little unclear if they don't have any exclusive, unique type of sneak peeks where they're going to cover other new releases that are forthcoming, but maybe just aren't being announced here at this, you know, at this Game Fest, or whether or not it truly is, hey, you know, these are things that you know that you've all known for a while now, and we're just going to do an in-depth dive. But even if that were the case, I feel like there's always new components to releases, right? There's more gameplay footage. Maybe a game adds a battle royale. You want to talk about that. So again, not questioning the fact that maybe the industry is slow, or that the titles that they normally would, or rather the release and the news that they would normally bring forth here is different than years past. But and maybe honestly, it's just this article doing them a disservice by that title. But it just seems kind of interesting to step forth with that being the headline, is manage your expectations, as opposed to just, you know, hey, having another great event this year. We're going to talk about a bunch of games that you already know and do a couple of sneak peeks and further developments as to games that have already been announced, but no exclusives, by the way. You know, kind of sandwiching it in kindness, as opposed to lowering expectations and then trying to generate hype after that. So again, I don't know if this is a Game Fest misstep or if this article really didn't do them a service here, but it's kind of interesting to see the strategy behind the announcement.
Lindsay, my question for you is, we've talked about CES and is it relevant, right? Summer Games Fest has always felt to me like we just take CES and instead of it being a show, it's a live stream, right? And it's like, well, if one's not relevant, probably the other isn't relevant, because anyone can just go to YouTube and watch the latest game trailer. Is the format just wrong here? And I'll get to Chris's comment. Maybe you want to comment on that, but like, what's the issue here, or is there an issue? And do you think there's a place for Summer Games Fest, even if there's nothing new to announce?
Well, I think there's two things that are happening. One of them, Chris did point out, and it's that devs aren't making new games for release right now and going on these circuits at the moment. A lot of games in the past year have been delayed. A lot of that is due to coronavirus and all this other stuff. So there's all kinds of reasons why games get delayed. And it seems like most of the AAA studios have delayed games, particularly ones that were supposed to be announced at the end of 2022 into 2023. So I do think that there's just an unfortunate, when you're an event that depends on game announcements and then all of those game announcements get intentionally pushed back at the same time. So a little bit of an element of bad luck to that for sure. The second thing that's happening is I just don't think that development studios are using these places as a way to announce their games anymore. I mean, we saw E3 not happening, and E3 used to be
Sorry, I misspoke. I said CES. I meant E3.
I thought you did, but
yeah. Sorry.
So, I mean, CES kind of fits in there too. But CES has never been huge on games, but E3, you know, there's ever since coronavirus, there's been this tendency to move away from that. And companies are much more interested in building their own brand and their own marketing tools and putting it on their own TikTok and YouTube channels and getting it out there in their own ways, or talking to the journalists that they like to cover it. So I do think that there's just been a shift away from this model as one to announce games, and coupled with the fact that you created an event that depends on game announcements that aren't there. It's definitely a bit of bad luck. And I'm just curious to see if these kind of festivals will either pivot to like, here's all the games that are out, come play them, come experience them, do something different, you know, than depending on game announcements, or if they'll just kind of go away and every company will come up with its own strategy for game announcements until 10 years down the road, someone says, hey, why don't we put this all together into one event? And it comes back together again.
I mean, it's always been a head scratcher for me that an entire industry, which exists on the concept of interactive entertainment, has the most linear of all delivery of like new game announcements. Like it's basically like watching the Oscars. We're going to blab into the camera for 3 hours and play this video of a trailer, which you can't play. Like it's the most non-interactive experience possible for an industry that is fundamentally interactive. Never made any sense to me. You know, I wonder what will happen to the viewership here. I suspect it'll still be good, not because people tune in to watch Summer Games Fest. I think it's more like people like me that will watch Asmongold reacting to Summer Games Fest, right? Like that's the more interesting content than actually watching the announcements directly. Let me just read the comments here. Matt says, if they don't have anything new, why should we tune in for the event? I mean, you probably shouldn't, Matt. Just, you know, go watch the 2 or 3 trailers you're actually interested in after the fact and save yourself 3 hours. Chris says, Twitter fingers complained about dev crunch. Now there's a slowdown in new releases. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, I never complained about dev crunch. That was not my problem. I want new games. But Chris, you make a great point, right? Like I think it's the total. Probably Lindsay, you made this point as well. Like it's all these things adding up. Like people complaining about dev crunch, so developers slowing down, games being delayed, COVID, fight for talent. You have this sort of perfect storm of fewer games. Chris says also way too much announcement content these days. Looking at you, OTK Games Expo. This is true. It's a little bit overdone now. It's a lot overdone now, I think. Matt says, no way, this show is not the Oscars. Not unless someone walks up and slaps Bobby Kotick on stage. I mean, that's content.
That would be worth paying
that's
for.
Content. Yeah, that'd be worth watching.